Growing up for me was a little bit different than most people. My mother was a heroin addict. So was my stepfather, and a lot of times I think that was the only thing they ever really had in common. Life was a struggle. It was a constant battle of survival, I guess is the best way to put it. There was nights that I remember sleeping in our car. There was nights that I remember sleeping underneath the tire swings that I played on at school. My mom was abusive. I have scars from where she put her cigarettes out on me, and I have scars from just countless beatings. But through all of that, still, I sound crazy, but I just wanted so badly for her to love me. I wanted so badly for her to have affection towards me, to adore me. With my stepdad, he shared the addiction, but he never got abusive, he never got aggressive. He would protect me from her. But my dad had contracted hepatitis from using, and he got really sick, and he passed. And that was the hardest thing for me, losing my dad. He, like I said, was the closest thing to a parent that I knew. And I think he was the only adult that I trusted. But he passed, and I remember coming home from the hospital that night with my little sister and my mom. And I remember just sitting in the living room and watching her shoot up until she turned blue. And I called 911. And that was the last time I ever saw my mom. After that, I went into the system. I just floated by. I just went from one family to another. It was just like I couldn't catch a break. I couldn't just find anyone to just be like, I love you, for who you are and whatever the circumstances are. When I turned 17, I got emancipated. It was my junior year in high school, and I just had enough. I had had enough of these people and the system and the hurt. I moved out on my own, and I was just all of a sudden in this world of people that were a little bit older than me and guys that were really interested in me. And I just was trying to find an outlet. I started going out every night. I started drinking every night. I started partying every night. I was dating different guys. Just making one bad decision after another, just trying so hard to fill this void, to find somebody to take care of me, I guess. I was working as a server at an Applebee's. This was a few years later, and this group of women came in and sat in my section, and they were talking to me, and they explained to me how they were planning an event for their youth group. And by the end of their meal, one of the girls asked me to come to their small group, which I had no idea what it was. But I went one week, and then I went the next week, and eventually I started going regularly every week, and I was building these relationships with these women, and they just had explained so much to me and were teaching me so much. And I certainly wasn't ready to jump on the Jesus train quite yet, but it didn't seem quite so unrealistic. And in the midst of all this, the guy I was with had obviously noticed a change, and he didn't like it, and it was causing problems in our relationship. And I was so torn, because this is this guy that I've been with for so long, and it's kind of stable, but I'm starting to feel a way that I've never felt before. So a couple months later, one thing led to another, and we broke up, and I found myself bawling my eyes out on the bedroom floor of one of these women. And I just remember feeling again so lonely, like I just lost everything all over again. In the meantime, her and her husband had had a couple of couples over, and so I dried my waterworks and we went out into the living room. Just I was hoping to distract myself, and they were playing Wii, and her husband started making avatars for everybody. And as he was making an avatar for this guy Dave, he was like, "Dave, how do you spell your last name?" And so Dave spelled it, and I just said, "Oh, that's crazy. I've never known anybody with that last name. That was my mom's last name." And so he asked, "Well, what was your mom's first name?" And I told him Sue. And he just kind of looked at me for a second and didn't really say anything. And then a minute later, he said, "Was your mom's first name Doy?" Which it was, which is why she went by her middle name, which was Sue. And I didn't know what to say at first. I was like, oh, I could throw up right now. But I just said yes. And he looked at me and he said, "That was my sister. You're my niece." So in this moment of just insane, I don't know, it was the first super overwhelmingly godly moment I've ever had. I just went from bawling my eyes out about losing everything, and I just met my uncle in the next room, and I met his wife, and they just found out they were pregnant. So in this moment, I all of a sudden went from just me to me and an uncle and an aunt and a cousin, and it was, like I said, the most overwhelmingly godly moment I had ever had. And at that point I was like, okay, all right, I think I'm starting to get it. So we started going to church every Sunday, and a couple of short months later I was sitting in church, and our pastor's lesson was so elementary, I know, but he just talked about John 3:16, and that was the first time I understood. And that was the day that I was like, okay, it doesn't matter who I am or who my parents were or what I've done or what they've done. It doesn't matter. It does not matter. God loves me, and God loves all of me, and he just wants me to accept it. I just have to take this. I just have to say okay. And I did. And that was the day that I was saved. And when I say I was saved, I mean I was saved from this life that nobody wants, that I don't know how I got through, that I was ashamed of, that I was embarrassed by, that I blamed myself for. And by the grace of God, I was saved. Oh, they're happy tears.